We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's July 31st here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yeun, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Choi Ji-hee.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, and Kim Si-young.
Good morning, Yeun.
Good morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, a news feed which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Now, BTS's member Suga has become the first owner of Samsung Electronics' latest foldable phone, the Galaxy Z Fold 5. Reports say that Suga received the phone when he attended the Galaxy Unpacked event last Wednesday. Suga has long been known for his love for Samsung Galaxy phones. At previous concerts, he asked his fans to give Galaxy phones only to take pictures over iPhones. Moving on to our second story. Some 30,000 faculty members and citizens took to streets of Gwanghwamun on Saturday for the second week straight, commemorating the death of an elementary school teacher who took her own life. They dressed in black despite afternoon temperatures peaking at 33 degrees Celsius. There, they demanded a safe educational environment that guarantees teachers' rights. And speaking of peaking temperatures, the UN Secretary General has said the era of global warming has ended. Instead, the era of global boiling has arrived. Antonio Guterres' comment came after scientists confirmed July was on course to be the hottest month on record. And before we take a closer look at this last story, let's hear what the UN chief had to say about climate change himself.
The era of global warming has ended. The era of global boiling has arrived. Leaders must lead. No more hesitancy. No more excuses. No more waiting for the others to move first. There is simply no more time for that.
And the UN Secretary General went on saying there is no more time to delay. He said the only hope we have is to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius, a long-time goal world leaders have agreed upon. And I would now like to expand our news feed here to the studio. Ji-hee, we've seen a lot of climate-related natural disaster wreak havoc across the world these days. Why don't you take us through some of them to show us just how serious of an issue global temperatures rising has been causing?
Right, so from France to Portugal, many countries in Europe, they've had record temperatures, especially in the summer of 2022. And overall, summer last year was Europe's warmest ever in history. And even an area larger than Luxembourg was burned to forest fires. And we're seeing extreme weather events like storms, heat waves, and flooding. And these accounted for up to 145,000 human fatalities across Europe over the past 40 years. And over 85% of those fatalities were due to heat waves.
Yeah.
And we can also see that economic losses are huge from these weather events. Europe reached around €500 billion over the same period as well because of all these weather events. And what's worse is that all these unfortunate impacts caused by climate-related events, extreme weather events, is caused to the most vulnerable in society.
For sure, especially those without enough infrastructure to keep themselves cool during these times. And we're also seeing a lot of climate-related calamities here in Asia, right, Si-young?
Yeah.
As Guterres said, it's not just Europe or the Americas or Asia. It should be a global effort to try to tackle climate change, don't you think?
I mean, for sure. I mean, as Guterres mentioned, as we all know, July 2023 has been the hottest three-week period ever recorded after weather recording has started. It's also seen the three hottest days on record, as well as the highest ever ocean temperatures for this particular month of July overall. We've seen India, China, Thailand, Vietnam all suffer from heat waves as well as high temperatures all across Asia. South Korea has seen some heavy monsoon, heavy torrential rain, which has caused deaths of quite a lot of people as well. Obviously, we've seen some reports on that too. I mean, official data from the World Meteorological Organization, or WMO, which is a UN organization as well, and the European Commission's Copernicus Climate Change Service confirmed that this year is set to be the hottest month recorded ever in human history. So I mean, it's not just us in the sort of developed countries. It's the concern arises arises from the developing countries' inhabitants and citizens. They lack, as you said, Jihi, they lack a lot of infrastructure. They lack, warnings in place. They don't really have defense structures against weather changes. If there's a flooding, the whole villages get flooded. They don't even have a record of who's there, who's gone lost, and things like that. It takes a lot more time to rebuild these smaller villages and cities in more of the rural parts of the world. And I think climate change action should be desperately, enhanced right now, as we know.
There's no time to delay, and it's not something that only world leaders should be thinking about. It should be done on an individual level. We should realize what all of these things could be happening, and they're already happening. Like, we couldn't sleep over the past few days because of blistering heat waves here in Korea. But as you both mentioned, in developing countries or underdeveloped countries, there's more people that are risking their lives at the times they're living in right now. Exactly. And that was our news feed for this Monday. Let's now move on to today's discussion topic. It's hard nowadays to find someone who's not on social media. Social media has been with us almost our whole lives and has changed business models and marketing schemes. It has even created new occupations like influencers. So today we're going to take a closer look at what it takes to be an influencer and what they usually do. Behind the glitz and glam is the need to be liked, literally. The more likes and followers you have, the bigger chance you have of making it as a social media influencer. That's what the latest South Korean Netflix series, Celebrity, covers. The drama series takes viewers through the fashionable life of influencers and to how far they go to secure their position. Though people say it's exaggerated, others say the drama captures what it's like to have this highly coveted occupation. As we saw just now, being an influencer seems to be a very popular and attractive career. And before we find out just how many people, especially young ones, want to become one, let's first define what an influencer is and whether there's any distinctive traits a Korean influencer has compared to those abroad. Xiang, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I mean, so influencer, technically, word to word, is someone who exerts influence over others. A lot of the influencers operate, as we know, on social media, social networking services, and things like that. And they often share a lot of their personal lives. They do, they gather followers. Many focus on specific genres such as cooking, or beauty products, product reviews, fashion. They also do traveling, vlogging, as well as personal life vlogging. Some even go to, vloggings of their year abroad, semester in another country and things like that, introduce different cultures. And as the Oxford Language Dictionary states, in marketing terms, an influencer is a person with the ability to influence potential buyers of a product or service by promoting or recommending the items on social media. So, I mean, social media is crucial here when talking about influencers, and they have most of their actions done and their, most of their influencing done on social media.
Yeah, online, and we're seeing such an influx of different diverse content that they could be influencing people with. But Sihi, would you like to differentiate what makes Korean influencers different from those abroad?
Well, I think there are some small characteristics that define Korean influencers in particular. Well, Korean influencers, they tend to sell or co-purchase branded products while flashing their luxurious lifestyles through luxury brands and also through playing golf or going to fancy places. There's so many golf influencers in Korea.
That's true.
Yes, we have a love for golf, and we see so many young influencers playing golf, and many of the products they sell are related to their looks as well, appearance, such as cosmetics, clothing, and diet products, and even health supplements for those who are working out to make perfectly shaped
first got to be attractive to gather the followers first.
Exactly. And they sell these products saying
visually
that
appetizing.
They are the products that help them look like how they look on social media. But then there are also young influencers who pursue a lifestyle that they value, such as practicing like a hobby that they really like, such as hiking or going longboarding, or even just pursuing a healthy lifestyle, such as clean eating and exercising regularly, etc.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you mentioned the buying together, like an influencer sells a certain product by collabing with a company. I think that's a very big difference with Korean influencers to those abroad. Then just how popular do you guys think think of becoming an influencer is for millennials and Gen Z when they're choosing occupations?
I mean, occupation-wise, I mean, I'm sure Ji will explain in a moment. I've seen a glimpse of what she's going to bring, some of the data, and it's a hugely popular occupation for the new generation. I mean, we've seen influencers, as you mentioned, live an extravagant lifestyle, all fancy stuff, the most trendy items there is on the market, doing the most trendy things, you know, going golfing, going longboarding, going to the, you know, best party spots or hottest events in town and things like that. So it really makes it, the occupation-wise, attractive. And it also has the benefit where if you have something that you personally like doing, maybe a hobby that's grown into a semi-occupation, you could just use that to market yourself and turn yourself into an influencer. And I mean, of course, influencers' incomes depend on the number of sponsors you have, or as you said, collaborations with different brands and products, which they advertise on their social media platforms for a compensation, for monetary compensation. So I mean, occupation-wise, it's actually quite nice. You don't really have to go through any formal training. You could possibly just sign up yourself into you know, like an entertainment company, you know, be managed by a company as well as an influencer, while still just doing your daily enjoying cooking sessions and things like that.
I think that's why it's so appealing, because as long as you have social media, you have a chance to become an influencer, which actually gives a lot of people hope that maybe they can change their fate.
And it's easy, it's something that you want to do all your time as well. It doesn't matter where you do it.
Exactly, it seems very extravagant. Chihi, would you like to share the compiling data that you have to compile?
Sure. I mean, like, it's such a popular job. Young people aspire to be influencers because once you become popular, it can bring you money and love as well from the public, and even respect maybe. And as you can see from the chart, it's also a career that consistently tops elementary school children's career aspirations surveys. So you can see that after athletes and teachers, creators are the third most popular. And even in a survey of college students, more than 70% agreed that being a YouTuber or creator could be a professional career. So as you see, these days, young people have a more positive view towards influencers, and they think that it could be professional. It's really different from the view that our older generation have, because they used to only value jobs such as doctors or lawyers, but nowadays the younger generation, they're really respecting the diversity we can have in these careers.
You know what, G, I think I really like the fact that teachers came on the second place. You know, after the tragic news about you know, elementary teacher recently, I think that's actually fantastic. People still want to be a teacher. People want to educate the children. I think that's even more remarkable.
That's another compelling point right there. Now, bringing the discussion back to influencers, we asked our viewers whether they've ever liked or followed an influencer themselves, and if so, how they fangirled or fanboyed over them. Here's what 3 of our viewers had to say. If you take a look, Andressa Anho said, "My favorite influencer is Ale Anho. She shows other sides of Korea to her audience in Brazil. She has a video about other cities that are not Seoul, and it's really nice seeing the beauty of the whole Korean country." Jack Thompson says, "I really enjoy the South Korean YouTuber Priscilla Kwan. She makes very fun and interesting content, and she's very insightful." SGR2828 said, "My favorite influencer is a Western YouTuber who makes videos about China. He has a weekly podcast that costs $10 per month to listen to. In the past, I subscribed for a couple of months." So as you can see, our viewers are quite well aware of the influencers out there, and they've been
digital savvy viewers.
Exactly. Now, I would now like to look at the psychology behind becoming an influencer and what makes a lot of people from our generation aspire to have this appealing occupation. Starting with you, G.
Well, the reason why the younger generation, they really like influencers is pretty much similar to the psychology of liking traditional celebrities we see on television, right? But what's better is that they can really communicate with these influencers through social media. They feel closer to them, and they can also express themselves to these influencers. And because the younger generation, the millennials and the Gen Zs, they tend to be very self-expressive, that's also a point. That's why, because they can be expressive on social media and communicate themselves with the influencers, this is something that makes them more enthusiastic about influencers. Yes.
They're more approachable than celebrities.
Exactly.
Because if you leave comments in their profile, they
reply.
They reply,
Right,
and then
right.
sometimes you can direct message each other.
direct messages
Exactly,
as well.
that's right. And but then there are other sides which the psychologists abroad say. They say that the decline of religion or the rise of secularization contributes to the rise of worship towards influencers. And also some say that as long as democracy and capitalism persists, worship towards influencers will continue.
And what about you, Xiong? What do you think why do you think a lot of people from our generation are appealed to influencers?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jihi made some good points, sort of weakening of social figures. That explains a lot of things. You know, back in the days, you'll have your, I guess, local pastor or something to lead the community. There's no one else to look up to or, you know, who you feel connected to. But these days, you could find literally any YouTuber, whether it be computer gaming, whether it be golfing, whether it be fashion. You could really find someone who you can look up to, someone who could show you the ropes, how to buy new products, product recommendations, and things like that. Lead the culture in a sense. And Gen Zs have been experiencing a lot of like some loneliness recently, research shows. A lot of them are suffering from digital sort of reluctancies and sort of depending on their social media lifestyles and things like that. So I mean, these relationships can also sort of offer connection and companionship with your aspiring, you know, YouTuber or someone, and also sort of companionship in a sense. It provides aspiration and highlights the value of their audience as well. All of these the influencers always mention, oh, you know, thanks to our audience, thanks to the fans and things like that, just as like normal celebrities do, or even more, because it's more of a personal space. And for brands as well, acknowledging these loyal followers of certain influencers also bring in a huge amount of sustainable income.
sure.
You know, I've seen some research, I can't quote them directly, but they're, you know, a lot of the followers of these influencers are very loyal. They want to keep to their fan base. If one of the influencers promote a brand, they would just go and buy it without any questions asked, which has become a slight problem in the society as well. So I mean, as Gen Zs develop sort of higher level of cultural affinity, they feel more comfortable with reaching out and in the sort of representation of their own niche cultures, which bring them comfort and attracts them to the influencers.
Yeah, and now we're going to include an expert in our talks to find out more about why a lot of people from our generation looks up to these influencers. We'll include this expert in internet studies in our talks right after this. To find out more about who influencers are and what type of influence they actually have towards our generation, we're going to include a professor of internet studies in our discussion. It's Professor Crystal Abedin from Curtin University in Australia. Great to have you here again on our show, Professor Abedin.
Good morning. Thanks for having
Hello,
me.
Professor.
All right, Professor Abedin, we were analyzing the reasons as to why a lot of people from our generation aspire to become these influencers. But as an internet studies expert, could you go a bit deeper into what some pros and cons are behind this growing influencer culture?
Well, for one, the very origin story of influencers are that they were meant to be more trustworthy, more credible, and more relatable than traditional celebrity. In their origin story, when they first broke into the scene in the late 90s and early 2000s, there was a lot of stigma towards celebrity because people became aware of the entire production scene and just how staged that was, in that every action, even tabloids doing paparazzi shots, could be staged in the celebrity realm. So people broke into the scene first with blogs and forums as ordinary organic voices representing the masses, or as we joke about, the peasants, so to speak. But you know, the industry has really saturated and grown in the last 15 years or so. So influencers themselves have professionalized the reputation has grown. And to be able to make it in the industry as a career pathway is one of the signs of almost anti-establishment, that you didn't get that while working in a corporate company, that you could have gotten into this pathway that's quite lucrative despite having maybe an alternative education pathway or having some sort of disability or discomfort that requires you to work from home. So the pathway has really changed from becoming a voice from the people, from the ground, all the way to, because the industry is so saturated, if you've made it, you're probably one of the indicators of success that there is hope for us all.
I think this whole diversity and respect towards it is very positive. My second question to you is, there are a lot of predictions that social media will change drastically once Gen Alpha become the main active users. So once this happens, do you think we'll still have the concept of influencers, or do you think there will be a completely new occupation?
Oh, 100%. Already with Gen Z, the cohort before Gen Alpha, we are seeing the normalization of influencer practices. So much so that people don't even claim the label anymore. You know, for millennials like myself, to call yourself an influencer, it came with a bit of prestige. It came with a bit of a barometer and threshold over what practices you were doing and how much you were earning. But just looking at the Gen Z cohort these days, self-promotion, backlinking and tracing what people can see of you when they search of you, even painting profiles either for dating, for school admissions, for employment and prospective interviews, all of that is already built into their psyche. And we can only imagine that it will intensify with Gen Alpha. The biggest distinction with Gen Alpha, though, is that their parents are us, millennials and Gen Z. So it's already going to be second nature for them to grow up with and on the internet. During the pandemic, there was a very popular phenomenon known as pandemic babies all over the internet, but especially on TikTok, where parents were curating a day in the life of what it's like to be stuck at home with their child 24/7, documenting every single milestone. So this is genuinely going to be the first cohort who will grow up and inherit an entire footprint online. And that's quite a force to be reckoning with once they have got that consciousness and maturity.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Abbott, and it was a pleasure to hear from you today.
Thank you.
All right, and before we end off, Xiang, why don't you take the final comment and tell us what would you like to see in terms of a healthier influencer culture go on here in Korea then?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think what Professor Abbott mentioned, the authenticity in the content, I think that really makes a difference. I think that clears a lot of ideas in my head. I've been quite late to the influencer game. I mean, I'm not an influencer or anything, but even just seeing influencers, I wasn't really a big fan of TikTok or even Instagram, never really been a huge user. But I see the point, the authenticity in the content, them talking about their daily lives, showing what their lives look like, showing their houses and things like that, brings a lot of positive points. And to be honest, I think it really depends though, because a lot of the big part of the occupation as an influencer is also about the audience. Most of our audiences aren't influencers. It's actually quite a small percentage of the world. Now I think the new generation thinking that this could be a fantastic occupation should be a little bit warned as well. At the essence of the occupation of being an influencer, there is attention seeking. You have to live off your audience's attention, and that takes a lot of effort, a lot of stress,
a lot of time,
you have
a lot
to be
of
on edge all the time, and that creates a lot of tension in your daily life as well, which might even ruin your life in some cases. And you've seen definitely some YouTubers breaking up relationships and things
behind
like that.
Behind the glitz and glamour, there are humans there, which means that this is an occupation that we need to be looking out for. And there's a lot of things for you to consider before taking on this path. And we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Choi Ji-hee.
Thank you.
And Kim Xiang.
My pleasure.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.
We're not stopping. 네가 머문